everyone. Welcome to My Side of the Bag. I'm Drew Hinesley, joined as always by Scottie Worldwide. Scottie, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Drew. Just got home from the Shadow Creek and having a great week off before we get to Chevron.
All right, let's go back to Shadow Creek. What are your thoughts?
That golf course should never, ever be played at match play. Um, I enjoyed the challenge, but whosever idea was this to be stroke play instead of match play, I think I might have said that wrong in the beginning, which I have heard this from our commissioner. Worst idea I've ever heard. Where they had to set these pins and how firm and how hard Shadow played was just atrocious. It was tough to watch. I mean, the cut was +9, and I don't think we do the women any favors because they're so darn good. And then what you had to watch on Thursday afternoon and even Friday afternoon, to me, is not a very good television product and doesn't help sell the sport that I've dedicated my life and my profession to. And so the first reaction to this is the format needs to go back to where we have 64 girls and we just play match play. If anyone's ever been to Shadow before, we can speak to the specific holes or the perfect layout. But Steve Wynn designed the golf course to be a match play golf course. And so the fact that we're playing stroke play on this golf course is beyond me. And I don't think the LPGA did themselves any favors by setting it up for stroke play and having to cut at 9 over.
So it is the T-Mobile match play presented by MGM Rewards. That's a mouthful. But match plays in the title, and you spent your first 3 rounds playing stroke play, 96 players that
Correct.
all played stroke play. Only 8 players of that 96 actually played a match at this golf course.
Correct.
So I personally, as a fan, find it incredibly confusing and misleading to go to a leaderboard for match play, go to a leaderboard to see the tee times for match play, and I see threesomes, and that doesn't make any sense to me. So how can this be resolved?
Yeah, Molly, our commissioner, commissioner of the LPGA, was on site. I have a little bit of insight to the situation. That I know that we expanded the field this year to give more playing opportunities for folks who may have not had another tournament before our first major. So that was the big goal of getting it to 96 and allowing more girls a chance to get more CME points before our first major. From what I'm hearing is that if no one likes this and we don't consider it necessarily a win, we can go back to just keeping this at match play. So my opinion, and I think what you'll see next year, is this just be a match play event again.
Okay. You mentioned giving players an opportunity to play. Doesn't that go back to just building a better schedule in the first 3 months of the year and building maybe
no doubt
a little bit more geographically sane schedule rather than a couple of events in Florida, the Far East, back to the West Coast of the USA? Let's try to make it a little more streamlined so you can just stay on one side of an ocean for a few weeks and get some rest.
Yeah, I will say this. Our schedule is better than it was last year, and it seems that it's improved with waves of travel. And there's not much they can do with the Asia swing, specifically Thailand, Singapore, and China, moving from those dates because the sponsors have us locked into that time of year. So there's 2 Asia swings on the LPGA for our folks listening. That can be confusing as well sometimes. But it does seem like we have Florida, California, Arizona, where we could, if my idea, I'm ranting here, but my opinion is, hey, even if we keep it and don't have the biggest and best field, or even on television, why can't we play a $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 event, make it 120 girls, reduce CME points if you want, don't put it on TV, but that would actually give more people opportunities to actually get enough points to get into the tournaments and allow for things. And also, too, if the Nellies of the world, if the Danielle Kangs of the world, the Lydias of the world don't want to come, then don't make them come. But just keeping this kind of stroke/match play, and not only I don't think it went over very well, But for our viewers, and most importantly, it is confusing. And I don't think necessarily was a very good television product to watch on Thursday or Friday afternoon.
All right, I'm not going to ask you to break any locker room codes and disclose anything that you should not. But what was the feedback amongst the players and the caddies overall about how last week went from start to finish?
You know, I think at the end of the day, and this is probably what the LPGA stance will be, is like if you look who won, if you look who they had Leona, they had Nelly. So I mean, the stars rose, and they got Rosang, they got some of the bigger stars playing match play, so they'll count that as a win. Obviously, the girl that's playing the very best out of everyone won the event, so that's a win. But I can't tell you how many times we looked at the pin this week, or after we hit a great shot and said, that's a great match play pin, or that's a great golf course for a match play. And sometimes you had to take 40, 30 feet, and that's all you could do because you're trying to protect bogeys and double bogeys out there. Where in match play, you're just trying to birdie and win the shot. So it changes strategically so much of how you actually approach the golf course.
All right, you mentioned the winner, Nelly Korda. She's now won 4 straight starts, 3 consecutive weeks. Were those consecutive weeks she won? I believe so.
Yeah, so
Palos Verdes, Arizona correct. First, Palos Verdes, and then Vegas. So,
yes.
I mean, I remember Nancy Lopez, I think, won 8 in a row. Am I right there? And I know my rookie year on the LPGA, Annika made probably, I think 2002 personally is the greatest season of golf that nobody talks about. Annika, 25 worldwide starts, 13 wins. Of the 25 starts, 23 top 5s, and the only 2 non-top 5s, both times she tied for 8th. Just an incredible season of golf. Is Nelly on her way to something like that?
I don't see her slowing down. And the thing about it, and I think you have to really understand LPGA to give her enough credit for this. But you run in really tough conditions on a very quirky golf course in Palos Verdes. She won in Arizona on okay conditions, but very scoreable, kind of a birdie fest. And then she wins at Shadow, which is the complete opposite of a birdie fest and like totally strategic. So there is no question she's playing the best out of anybody playing golf right now. And the fact that she's won on 3 kind of different ask of what it asks you to do to win the golf tournament, I don't see her slowing down. If anything, we get to more traditional golf courses now when we go play at Carlton Woods, and then a personal favorite of mine of Wilshire. I don't see her slowing down, and I don't think you would ever pick anyone not to have her win Chevron right now. It's just she's playing that much better than everyone else.
As the old school guys would say, her game travels, and obviously it does very well. And she is the number 1 and growing that margin of number 1 in the world every single time she tees it up.
And just one notion here that I want to talk about too, like someone that doesn't get enough credit for what they do is Jason McD, who goes out there, and I see him every Monday still walking golf courses. I see him putting in the work. I walked with him the back nine at PV on Sunday. Like, even with all of this success, and it'd be so easy to sit on his laurels, but he's still putting his work in and working his ass off. So I feel like he doesn't necessarily always get respect. It was awesome to hear what Nelly said in the interview about how she has a great caddy. But the man works as hard as anyone out there still.
And that's always a recipe for success. I can tell you, the guys, there's going to be a certain group of guys that you're going to see on Mondays from 5 to 7, 7:30 as it gets later in the year, maybe even as late as 8 o'clock. You're going to see a certain group of guys every week on a golf course doing their work. And guess where else you end up seeing that group of guys? Late on a tee sheet on the weekend. And that all goes together. Okay, so we've hinted on it. Season's first major on the LPGA Tour, the Chevron Championship at Carlton Woods in the Woodlands, Texas. You will be there with your boss, Elizabeth Skokel. Give me a little preview of what we can expect next week at the LPGA's first major?
Yeah, so they resurfaced a lot of the greens, so we're on brand new greens. So Sunday, I'm gonna have my work cut out. Gonna go do my work on Sunday and see some of these new greens and some of these new layouts into greens that they have. Last year, it played really soft because it was basically a rain out. This year, they are getting some rain this week, but it's supposed to be warm weather. So hopefully, it plays a little firmer. Kind of brings the better ball strikers up to where they need to be. So it's not just kind of a slosh fest, and you got to think about strategic shots out there. But it can be brutal. It can be a really tough test, Carlton. So it plays kind of long. Obviously, that will play into my strengths. If you look about who was up there last year, Nelly, Lilia, Angel Yin, Ataya, right? All pretty much long hitters of the golf ball. And so there's a lot of long 5-6 irons into greens, and they require you to be on the right shelves of these greens. It's going to be interesting to see if they're still as undulated as it was last year when we get there.
Do we have a lot of rough at this golf course? Is it all about accuracy? I know the length is always going to be at a premium, but is accuracy at a premium?
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's a lot of trouble in runouts areas. So off the tee, it requires you to be pretty accurate with your tee shots. So the rough can be thick, you know, it would get a lot of rain, a lot of vegetation out there in Houston this time of year. And so the rough can be pretty thick. So you definitely got to, pick really good lines off tees. There's a lot of forced carries off the tee that you can't see that are kind of all around that 230, 235 number. So, I mean, for a lot of the field, they'll have to make a decision of how aggressive they want to be or they lay back. Obviously, for us, that 230 number is a very comfortable cover. So that shouldn't be an issue.
And what are we going to see as far as par threes? Are we going to see anything? We had a conversation, you and I think we disagree a little bit on this. I would love to see in at least a major championship, at least 1 or 2 days a week, one or multiple par threes go up into the 205, 210 range, and make them go to the longer irons, maybe even pulling some head covers off, hitting into par threes. How do you feel about that? And can we expect that next week at Chevron?
I mean, again, I personally, I got to look at it through my boss's lens, and as a team, how we do that. You move them as far as you want. It's only going to help us. But and that's what people don't realize. Like as you get longer, you only help the longer hitters because spin and the clubs that going into those greens, right? So I mean, just off the top of the head, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 can be a long par 4 up there on that tee box. There's some wind that you got to face. It's over water. There's a bunker. I remember last year someone putted it into the bunker just because that green's really slopey. So you can watch some carnage happen there. 17, right before you get to that great finish on 18. Hopefully that tees up on 18 because it's a way better hole when people are going for it every day. But back to the par 3 of 17. Really challenging green, especially when that pins over on the left. If you miss your spot, you can definitely run through. That greens tend to be pretty firm, and you can see a lot of chipping from back to front there. That green's not going to hold very well. So definitely there'll be. I don't know if they get to your 200 number, Drew, but they can definitely be challenging. I think me and Annie hit maybe 5 iron somewhere last year on that 17. So.
I like that. I like being able to test all the clubs in a round of golf. And typically, the only time you really get to test the hybrids or the 4 iron, the 5 iron on the LPGA tends to be par threes. So I don't like it when I go through a round of golf and there's 2 or 3 clubs that I haven't had to hit in a major championship.
Yeah, no, it's fair. That's fair. I mean, maybe some of the shorter hitters lay up a lot with hybrids, but yeah, you definitely. But by the same token, I would say, okay, let us have those par threes into holes, but let us also hit 4 and 5 irons into par 5s.
Yes,
which
Yes,
doesn't
when
happen
they
a lot
set
on
up
our
a
tour.
par five for everybody to have 3 shots, I think that's the same as making a par three 105. It just turns into a wedge and a putting contest and not a skill competition. And one of the skills is length. So I like seeing skill being used on threes, fours, and fives. And
I'm with you.
that's just me. I have a tendency, and I've been called out for this. I typically only take jobs with players who hit it a very long way. So I have a certain way I like to look at a golf course, and that may be because of the bias of my bosses, as you already alluded to. All right, give me some predictions. Somebody other than Nelly to win
Yeah.
at Chevron. That's a hard question at the moment, isn't it? That's how good she's playing, huh?
Yeah, yeah, that's how good she is playing, right? Like I'm basically picking against her. Someone we played with on Friday afternoon that did a lot well, that is as long as us. I'll say Jennifer Kupcho.
Jennifer Kupcho to win her second Chevron Championship, but the first in Texas. That's your pick.
Correct. Correct.
I think that's a good pick. You know what? I'm going to go with another long hitter. I'm going to go with Bianca Pagdananen to just
Hello,
come out of
former boss.
left field. Former boss. I called it a couple years ago. I think she's going to win multiple majors. And gosh, might as well make the present count and do it right now. She's in the field. She hits it a long way. Let's go, Bianca.
I'm in. I definitely could see that on the right day. She gets the right putter going. I watched, listen, just as for our viewers know, I watched Bianca do something I've never seen before in professional golf. I saw her make back-to-back eagles in Toledo on 2 par 5s.
There you go. Not done very often. 17 and 18 at the old Jamie Farr Kroger Classic. Now it's the Marathon Championship in Sylvania, Ohio. All right, Scottie, final thoughts on the LPGA schedule early in the year as we head into the Chevron Championship and your pick of Kupcho as a major champion for a second time.
I think for those that didn't get a really good look at Carlton Woods last year, I think weather permitting, we're going to have a much better kind of well-run tournament. Hopefully our rules officials set it up a little bit better. Now that everyone's kind of seen it, had a year to play on it, see what works, what doesn't work. I think you're going to see a really exciting tournament. And also, too, I mean, just look at the leaderboard. Stars tend to rise to the top there. I mean, this was kind of the ascension of Lily Avu. I know she won in Asia earlier, but her dominant performance started here, and her major championship started here. So I think you're going to be in for a really, really good, fun, exciting week next week if you turn on and see the ladies play our first major of the year.
Well, and Scottie will be there working with Elizabeth Stokel, so put them on your favorites list. Hopefully, we get to see a lot of coverage of them on the weekend as they chase a major championship. Scottie, thanks for joining me and sharing your opinion on this episode of My Side of the Bag.